live in our kitchens in Maitland, Florida. I am super excited to be here with you. I'm here with my dear friend and Director of Corporate Sales, Alex Young, straight from Indiana, straight from API, right in with a fresh sunburn. How you feeling today, Alex?
I feel great. I couldn't be better, honestly, and it's always good to see you.
Awesome.
So, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we are here with you, and I am just deeply honored to be here in such an intimate setting with people that have been followers of ours, that love our Bourbon Barrel Aged coffee. All things coffee and bourbon is where we are today, and we're going to do a virtual live tasting. We have a lot of special guests. You know, we have special friends coming to visit today.
I'm really excited.
I am super excited about the folks that have taken time to be a part of our lives and our businesses and our audience. So we are going to do a live virtual coffee tasting today, and as we're fond of telling people, there is a right way and a wrong way to drink coffee, and so we're going to do that. But before we do that, why don't we go right to the roaster and show a little bit of video of kind of what this process looks like. I know a lot of people always talk to us about, why is our Bourbon Barrel Aged coffee so good? What makes it different? And we're going to show people and talk about really what makes it different today, and especially why the Devil's Cut is just, I think, the best one we've ever made. Let's watch that.
Perfect. Yeah, so
Say
Chef,
anything?
tell me kind of what's going on here.
So what's happening is we're opening up the Devil's Cut barrel right now, and this is, of course, Gus Torres, our roaster. He's been our roaster since we started 6.5, almost 7 years ago. Gus and I started this journey, and this is exactly what we happen. When we talk about small batch, we talk about handcrafted, we talk about artisan. This barrel right here that we're seeing is the Devil's Cut barrel. That's the barrel. There's not a warehouse of barrels. There's not hundreds, thousands of barrels that we make coffee at. That coffee we're looking at right there, look at how excited I am. I am literally a kid in a coffee factory right there. Super, super excited. The smell, if there was smell-o-vision, you would just be dying right now. You've smelled those coffee beans, haven't you?
I have. And tell me a little bit about what's actually happening here. The color seems to be different on a green bean.
It is. So what's happened, we put green beans in soaking wet Garrison Brothers bourbon barrels. The beans are soaking and resting and aging in those barrels. Look at that. That's a green coffee bean when it went in. When it comes out, it has absorbed all of the bourbon that was in that barrel, and it's been infused into that bean. So we're seeing the exact process of what happens. Those beans go from the barrel to the top of the hopper and into the roaster. This is literally bean to barrel to cup.
So no flavoring added. It's simply a natural process with the barrel, correct?
It's 100% natural, organic, artisan process. It's literally handcrafted by those 4 hands that you see. So what's happening right here, I love this part, is we pull that little shooter out of there. I'm smelling those beans as they're roasting to do what a chef does, which is try and fine-tune the flavors and the profiles of what's coming out. We don't dump those beans like you just saw until Gus and I decide those beans are ready. They smell right to us. They've roasted for the exact number of minutes that we think is going to create that coffee.
That's very precise, and it's crazy how computers can calculate all that in today's world.
It is, and it's really impressive to me that we fine-tune it to the point where we can create what we want to create, yet it's still handcrafted. It's still Gus and I, going through those beans. We're still handling those beans. We're still looking at them. We're still smelling them. We're still touching them. We're still roasting them to the way that we think is going to be the best cup of coffee we're going to be able to put into your hands and our followers' hands.
Well, absolutely. Well, I think there's enough talk. I'm ready to get into this Devil's Cut, honestly.
Did I get you all excited about it?
You did. So why don't you walk me through, actually the first time I met you, Chef, was actually over a virtual tasting. And it was phenomenal to see kind of how coffee can be tasted similar to wine or bourbon or things like that. So why don't you walk us through the process of an actual tasting and show us how to properly drink a beautiful cup of coffee.
As you mentioned, coffee, handcrafted premium coffee, is really no different than a spirit or a fine wine. You really want to accentuate and showcase the flavor notes and the profiles of whatever it is that you're drinking. In this case, really good premium coffee. So, my process for a proper coffee tasting is to, after you brew the coffee, let it sit for a couple of minutes. People who have seen this with me, watch me do this, know that I have the patience of a gnat. And the last thing I want to do when I brew a cup of coffee is to sit there and let it rest and think about things. I want to dive right into that cup of coffee. You absolutely don't want to do that.
Right.
You want to let it sit for a few minutes, and you want to let it rest. So it rests for a few minutes, and to do a proper coffee tasting, what we're going to do is we have black coffee right here, right? We just brewed it in this beautiful machine. We have fresh black coffee. We've been on air for a few minutes, so we won't burn our tongues, thankfully. So what we're going to do, just like a wine, is we're going to first smell it. That's awesome. So all of the people, I know we have tons of questions coming up. I know we have a lot of people who are excited. First thing that I love to hear is people's reactions when they smell our coffee. What is your reaction when you smell this?
It's truly a bourbon front smell, and it really gets the caramel tones out. It's just a beautiful, strong yet subtle almost. It's really hard to explain, but it's phenomenal. I know everybody.
Awesome.
I know everybody's loving it out there.
I know people are super excited. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to taste it. It's got such a great mouthfeel. And what I love about all of our coffees is that they're all unique. Every barrel, that barrel we looked at, that's the barrel. We produced 43 bags of coffee out of that barrel.
Right.
That's it. All 43 were sold. That's what we have. We have a few left if somebody wants to get one.
Sure.
But for the most part, that's it. And that barrel will be retired. You know what we're going to do with that barrel?
What are we going to do with that barrel?
We're going to auction that barrel off. I almost forgot. Production forgot to remind me. We're going to auction off that barrel. That barrel that you saw on TV a moment ago.
Yes.
Is that barrel that's sitting right over here.
No way.
I swear to God.
Wow.
It's this barrel right here.
Okay.
We're going, oh, look, there it is, the beautiful Devil's Cut. And you can see the shot. The barrel that Devil's Cut barrel is sitting on top of is the very first barrel. I get like all excited and weepy because that very first barrel that we ever created Bourbon Barrel Aged coffee is sitting right there. It's like my baby. It's like my first little baby.
Really
I
special.
love it. I love it.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, Dan Garrison wants that barrel back so bad. But I want his first bourbon barrel. So at one point, if he ever wants to exchange, Dan, anytime you want to have a conversation, we can switch those first barrels out. We can have a conversation. Sure. So that's the Devil's Cut barrel. We are going to be auctioning that barrel off tonight. Whatever that number is at the end when we get to it, will include the shipping. We will ship that barrel to whomever buys it at the end, anywhere in the continental United States.
Right. Well, I've known you long enough to know that you just take things into your own hands, and a little impromptu here with this auction. So I think what we'll do is if anybody is out there looking to do this, why don't we start with $250? Do you think that that's a good number?
I've been offered way more from bourbon barrels that we've aged coffee and bourbon in, so
I know you
I
have.
think $250. I will cry if I have to give it away for $250, but we'll start with $250.
I think that's great. And if you want to go ahead and put yourself into the chat there, what your number might be, we'll go ahead and tally that, and at the end of this, we'll go ahead and figure out who that winner is.
I think we'll check in with folks as we go through.
Absolutely.
So let's get back. Let's get back to coffee.
Yeah, let's do
You almost got this. I get distracted by super fun, sexy
I know,
bourbon barrels.
You draw me in with that.
And then we just go down a rabbit hole.
We do.
In this case, a bourbon barrel.
Yeah.
So we have our nice coffee. We've tried it. Black coffees that are flavored we have our beautiful artisan line of coffees. Those are all flavored coffees. We have creme brulees, we have southern pralines, we have our famous tree ripened pear. All flavored coffees are accentuated by two things, a little bit of sweetness and a little bit of cream. And the reason for that is that it accentuates those flavor notes and amplifies them. If you imagine food, by the touch of a little bit of salt, brings out all the flavors. The same premise is true with coffee, flavored coffees, in sugar, a sweetener, and a cream, like any kind of a milk. So, the difference between our bourbon barrel aged coffee is that it's not a flavored coffee, but it does have bourbon flavor infused in it. So, it does benefit from that same premise of a flavored coffee. So, we're going to go through that process right now. We've drank it black.
Yeah.
We love it black. Let's see if we love it more through this process.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the honors.
And it seems
I'm already super sweet, so I'm going to just put a little.
Sure.
You can be a little surly, so I'm going to give you a little bit more sugar.
Excellent.
There you go. And we're going to go ahead.
So definitely, when we're talking adding cream and sugar, it's accentuating the flavor, but we want to do it in moderation.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to overpower what you're flavoring. You really want to accentuate that flavor, not overpower and cover it up.
Sure.
So let's try it with just a little bit of a sweetener. See, it's already giving it a completely different flavor profile. To me, what does that say to you? What does that say to you now?
Well, what I notice is actually the mouthfeel is actually rolling off the tongue that much more with a little bit of sugar in that. That's
That's awesome, isn't it? So we're going to have a little bit of cream now.
Okay. That's perfect.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Okay.
Let you do the honors.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I hope you're doing this at home. I hope you're going through the same process with us and you're experiencing it this way. I find that many of our coffee drinkers who were cream and sugar drinkers before, when they've tried our coffees, they've realized that good premium coffee should not be bitter and over-roasted and overcooked, if you will.
Sure.
But that's what normal commercial coffee that's available readily through some drive-through is. So that's what people think about when they think about good coffee. And that coffee is undrinkable black, in my opinion.
Sure.
Our coffee, I drink our coffee black or with just a touch of sugar or a touch of cream. And I find that it's really the coffee that's coming through, not that burnt bitterness, acidic piece. So let's go ahead and try it. I can and do drink that all day.
Honestly, it's called the Devil's Cut for different reasons, but this should be illegal. Honestly.
It really should. It really should. And so before we jump on to, I know what are some of our super exciting guests. We have live guests here, which I'm super excited about.
I know you are. So tell us a little bit about who they are and how they're related to Chef Bob's Coffee.
So when we were creating our bourbon barrel aged coffee, we were doing that through ourselves. We were creating it ourselves with that very first barrel right there. Mm-hmm. And we had the opportunity to meet a gentleman. I'm going to let him tell the story, but we had the opportunity to meet a gentleman who I'm super excited to call a dear friend and an incredible partner. And we decided to partner up together and create our bourbon barrel aged coffee as you see it today. What makes our Devil's Cut, today's coffee, incredibly special is that this coffee is aged much longer than our normal 40 days. We have one barrel, 40 days, 40 bags. That's what we create. This barrel was aged over 60 days. And during those 60 days, 62 days to be honest, to be exact, during those 62 days, those beans went from really, really awesome to really, really devilish. And they became the Devil's Cut 21 that we talked about. And will be our Devil's Cut for this year, and that's where we are. So that's what happened to these beans. And we are super excited that we have one of our guests coming on who's going to talk about how we had this partnership, where we got this partnership, and more importantly, the tie-in to bourbon.
Beautiful.
So with that, I would like to. Do we have our guest? Let's do a little. I am super excited to be back. As you can see, our special guest is going to be the Dan Garrison, the quarterback and founder of Garrison Brothers Distillery. He creates this incredible Garrison Brothers bourbon that I have come to know and love. And do we have Dan joining us here now?
I'm here.
Dan, how are you, my friend?
I'm so good it's not fair to the rest of the world, Bob. How are you?
This sounds like any other day in Dan Garrison's world.
Yeah, it's a pretty good life. I drive all over the country. I'm coming to you live from Norman, Oklahoma right now in my truck, peddling bourbon to liquor stores all over the state, buying drinks from people at bars every night. It's not a bad gig.
That is super awesome. So tell me just a little bit, Dan, for those who don't know you and those who are not familiar with Garrison Brothers Distillery and your bourbon. Tell me, how did you get here, Dan?
So I was in software marketing in Austin, Texas in 2000, and my company was sold to a big California company called Commerce One. At the time, I was worth a couple $1 million because I was sitting on 17,000 shares of Commerce One stock. We're trading on NASDAQ for about $248 a share. And then we had a little hiccup in that plan. This oil and gas company out of Houston called Enron went belly up, and they happened to be our largest client. So I kind of had to rethink my life and what I was going to do with it. And I was sitting in bed reading the newspaper with my wife one evening, and I was reading a story about a guy who was going to start yet another Texas vodka company. We already had Tito, we already had T-Penny, and now this guy was going to start another company called Sabi that made vodka. And I'm giving my wife shit because she's a vodka drinker. And I said, why would anyone spend that much money to go make vodka? It's tasteless, it's flavorless, it has no aroma whatsoever. Why doesn't somebody out there make bourbon? And she said, well, as much of that stuff as you drink, maybe you should. 2 weeks later, I was in Kentucky. 4 weeks later, I bought my first still. 7 weeks later, I bought a piece of land out in the Texas Hill Country. And 17 years later, I have turned my first profit this year thanks to COVID. So it's been a crazy year for us. It's been a 17-year journey. And we think we're making the highest quality, finest tasting bourbon whiskey today. And we've also got our hand in some pretty damn good coffee, too.
You do. And so that begs the question. I think one of my favorite parts of our relationship is how we met. And one of my favorite parts of that part of our relationship is that you have a version of it, I have a version of it, and there's a version of it on Garrison Brothers Cowboy Coffee. Why don't you tell me your version of how we met?
Well, our philosophy at Garrison Brothers is you never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
That's awesome.
And I was doing bourbon evangelizing down in Florida, spreading the Garrison Brothers gospel, and I just happened to walk into a Total Wine and More store at the same time that you were on the bourbon row, picking out different bourbons for some event that we're putting together. If I recall correctly, the salesperson from Total Wine and More leaned over to me and looked at me, and I said, "I got this." And I walked over to you and I said, "Hey, have you tried Garrison Brothers before? It's expensive as hell. It's delicious." And I think you said, "No, I haven't." And I said, "Well, I'm Dan Garrison. I make this bourbon, and I'd like to buy you a bottle." So I took the bottle up to the counter, left it there at the counter, paid for it, and I think you took it home and drank it and enjoyed it. And that's the beginning of what's been about a 7-year friendship between the two of us. And it's a great way for us to start.
I will defer to your memory and your judgment, and I'll say that is exactly what happened, Dan. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what happened. What I loved about that meeting was that, you know, I take myself to be a pretty good judge of character, and I know folks from Texas feel the same way, and that you can pretty much size somebody up in the first couple of minutes in meeting them. Would you agree with that?
I certainly do. Yeah, good bourbon brings people closer together. Good bourbon creates enduring, lasting friendships. Good bourbon can increase your faith in man and God, and I see that every damn day.
I totally agree with that. And I sized you up from your cowboy hat to your boots, and I determined that your approach and your attitude and frankly that hat made me a believer in wanting to try that product, and it was one of the pivotal points in our business of creating bourbon barrel aged coffee for folks to enjoy, and honestly finding what I find to be one of the best bourbons in the world to be able to share with all of our friends and followers. So I love that we have that friendship and that relationship. And people ask me all the time what makes my coffee special, and what makes my coffee special is the ingredients that I use to create that coffee. And one of those premium ingredients that I couldn't create it without is your bourbon barrels. And a lot of people ask me, what is bourbon? What is the difference between bourbon and whiskey? So again, for all the coffee folks that are listening here, tell me what makes bourbon bourbon, and why all bourbons can be whiskey, but not all whiskeys can be bourbon.
Sure, whiskey is a broad umbrella category of distilled spirits that are made from cereal grains: corn, wheat, barley, rye, rice. Those are the cereal grains that you make whiskeys with. So underneath that broad umbrella category, there's Scotch whiskey, Irish whiskey, there's blended whiskey. I'm not going to mention any names like Crown Royal, or spirit whiskey. I'm not going to mention names like TX. Those are all different types of whiskeys. And then there's Japanese whiskey, there's Irish whiskey, there's bourbon whiskey. Bourbon whiskey is held to a much higher standard than all of those others. If you want to make bourbon in the United States, you have to follow these rules that we call the ABCs. First of all, it's got to be made here in America. B, it's got to use a new barrel every single time. C, it's got to be at least 51% corn. D, it's got to be distilled at 160 proof or lower. If you go over 160 proof when you're distilling it, congratulations, you can go more for Tito beverage, because now you're making vodka instead of bourbon. E is entry proof. That stands for the entry proof that it goes into the barrel. It's got to be at least 125 or lower to go into the barrel. And then F stands for fill proof. When you fill that bottle up, bourbon can go from 80 proof all the way up to our cowboy bourbon, which is 145 proof. So it's the last rule in the bourbon alphabet is G, and that stands for genuine. All those other whiskeys I mentioned that fall into the category can use food coloring, they can use additives, they can use sweeteners, they can add red dyes to make it redder, they can add caramel coloring, they can add vanilla if they want to. With bourbon, the only ingredients you're allowed to use is the water, the wood, and the grain.
That's awesome.
So bourbon is often referred to as America's genuine spirit.
That is fantastic and awesome. And honestly, in all the conversations I've had with bourbon folks, and we actually have some bourbon folks here I'm super excited to introduce here shortly, I've never heard anyone explain it from the ABC method. So thank you. You know, yet again, learning something new from Dan Garrison is making my life better. So thank you for that.
My pleasure, Bob.
So I have...
Love working with you.
I love working with you too, buddy, and your brother Charlie. I adore Charlie as well. So I have one more question for you. I didn't know if you know it, but we are auctioning off the Devil's Cut barrel that you sent me, that I created our Devil's Cut coffee with. And we're auctioning that barrel off tonight to one of our viewers who is watching right now. We have a lot of people, I can tell, that are super excited. 21 people that are super excited about that barrel. Yes, the number keeps going up. But I have a question for you, Dan. First, I know that you do some barrel auctions at the ranch in High, don't you?
We do, and I think Kirsten just told me that I'm currently the highest bidder for that barrel.
See, now what did I say, audience? Didn't I tell you that he keeps, Bob, yeah, sure, I'll send you barrels. Let's make coffee. Let's do stuff. Let's have a great, but then he wants the barrels back. He wants me to soak them with coffee and these beautiful coffee beans, but then he wants his barrels back. I knew he was going to try and get this barrel. I knew he was. But let me ask you a question, Dan. I understand you're going to be visiting us here in Orlando at the end of the month. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Would you be willing to sign that Devil's Cut barrel for whoever ends up with it, assuming it's not you? If I put that close to you, would you go ahead and sign that for these folks?
No, Bob, I'm pretty sure that I would just take that barrel anyway.
So what I'm hearing,
I want to put some 5-year-old bourbon in it and let it age for another year and let it absorb some of the coffee.
my God! All right, Dan. So now we're just entrepreneurial, and now we're just going to talk about some other things. We got one barrel, Dan. It's one Devil's Cut barrel. We're going to have to. Well, you tell you what. We're going to see where it lands, and we're going to see what happens with it. And in the meantime, I know you are crazy busy out there, and I am super honored and excited that you joined us. Thank you so much. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your friendship. And I am super excited to continue down this road with you. And do you have any questions for me or our audience or anything that's going on here in beautiful Orlando today?
It's my great pleasure to be on this call, and I really enjoy working with you. I mentioned that before. We do barrel auctions all the time. We give away full barrels of bourbon to charities to raise money for their specific causes. We're very much in support of veterans' causes, very much in support of wide open spaces in Texas because it's getting a little crowded down here.
Yeah.
We're very much in support of creating a hospitality healthcare industry because those people are not taken care of. And if one guy breaks his leg, he's out of a job, he's in big trouble. So we'll put together a healthcare program to support that industry.
That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. We really do, in our positions, have to help those that are in need and in need of help, and I'm honored to help you with those programs as well. So that was Dan Garrison, the quarterback and the founder of Garrison Brothers Distillery in High, Texas. I love working with Dan. I love working with his brother Charlie, and they create some of really, truly, honestly, the most beautiful bourbon products that I've ever had, that I've ever created with him. This is the actual bottle that Dan Garrison gave me. I did not take it home and drink it. I bought another bottle. There we go. I bought another bottle of Garrison Brothers Distillery's bourbon before I left that Total Wine because something told me that was going to be a special bottle. It is a special bottle. It's the same bottle that he gave me. So I'm super excited. I have friends and family over and visitors all the time. And what? We have a new guest?
We have a guest.
We do. What do we have here?
Hey, Chef, isn't it your birthday this week?
Oh my God, it is my birthday weekend.
Okay, so of course, people know if Chef Bob's around, Jilly's going to be following somewhere.
It is so nice to see you.
I couldn't show up empty-handed, so of course I had to bring cake.
Of course.
I heard there was a couple things going on today, coffee, bourbon, couple things. I dressed for the occasion.
You did? You look neat.
You know me, I always have themed outfits.
You are themed.
And I put all of those things into these cupcakes for your birthday. Yeah.
Tell me.
Tell me
what we have.
These are, so the cake itself has some of your Devil's Cut ground up into the batter.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Like a little mocha thing going on, a little cocoa powder, very light, more just to get those little hints of the coffee flavor. Mm-hmm. And then it's filled, I know you like a pineapple upside down cake thing.
I love pineapple upside down cake.
So we're doing pineapple right side up cake.
Oh,
because
good.
I don't have tiny little baking pans. So they're filled with a bourbon pineapple filling, like a little jam. And then
So did you use Garrison Brothers?
I did.
Bourbon. You're a
Yeah.
big Garrison Brothers fan now.
I mean, only because of you, and not because their product isn't great, but just because I'd never heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like Texas. You're like, oh, all bourbon must come from Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
So, but
So not
Texas
true.
is like, that's not true.
Yeah.
And after coming to a bunch of your events and all of those things, now Garrison Brothers is a staple in
your
my
house.
life.
That is so awesome.
So
to
yeah,
hear.
so the pineapple bourbon filling, and I torched them a little on the top, little
They're
brulee,
beautiful.
and a little bit of brown sugar in the icing, bourbon caramel sauce, of course, and then our fancy cocktail cherries. We couldn't use any.
Which is an old-fashioned. This is a traditional
old-fashioned garnish.
cherry. Yeah. So you brought it all
Took a
together.
little cocktail.
You brought it
into a
all
tiny
together in
cupcake.
one little bite, just for me.
Just for you.
That is so sweet and special. I adore you. This is, of course, for those who don't know, Jillian Hopke of Jillycakes, Cupcake Wars. How many times? Twice? Just twice?
Three episodes, yeah.
3 episodes. So Jilly and I have been dear friends and supporters and lovers of each other's businesses since we met long ago.
When you walked into my cupcake shop in
I
Winter
did.
Park.
I did.
What? That's like 6-7 years ago now.
I know,
That
can
we're
you
going
believe it?
on that long. But.
I know. So, and so tell me, besides all of your Jillycakes work that you do some really, really beautiful. To me, you are the me version of coffee in cupcakes and cakes.
I mean,
and
always
what I love
say-
you doing cakes.
And I know that you have the same sentiment. The reason I got into cake is because I couldn't find. You can find beautiful cakes and you can find tasty cakes, but it's hard to find people that are in the business of both of those things.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to make cakes that are both visually crazy and sculptures and weird stuff, but also that like taste good when you cut into them. It's not just like a show on the outside. So that's what got me into cake, but I'm also into other things than cake. Recently, and I've started sort of teasing some of these little things on the Jillycake stories and whatnot. Through the past year of kind of sitting at home, you're like, oh, well, what do I do? I've got a lot of drinks around the house. Let me start.
A lot of bourbon.
Let me just start dabbling in cocktails. So we sort of came up with this crazy idea. Old friend of mine, we actually grew up one town away from each other.
Really?
Yeah, and
That's
didn't
awesome.
know that until we became roommates in Florida.
No kidding,
Yeah,
really? That's
it's like-
awesome.
So you sort of like find out everything all comes full circle. But we, over the past couple of months, have just launched a new YouTube channel show called The Bourbon Study. So we're
Really?
sort of like, and not in a way that we're experts about it, because we're learning too, but more a learn with us. Like, come on the journey, taste stuff, check stuff out. We'll give honest opinions if we like stuff, if we don't, if we think it's worth the price, if we think it's not. And so I actually brought a guest. I know
You
you're
brought a
bringing
guest?
guests.
Y-
I brought guests.
My guests brought a guest.
I brought a plus one.
You got a plus one. Wow.
Usually that would be Steve. Today it is not.
Well, all right, I'm excited to meet this guest.
Yeah. So this is my co-host for the Bourbon Study, Ryno.
Hello.
Here he
Hello.
comes.
Hi.
How are
It
you?
is
Chef
a
Bob.
pleasure. Welcome
Yes.
to our kitchen.
Thank you. I'm the plus one's substitute? Is that how
yeah,
you just
yeah, that's
introduced
how
me?
we-
Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yes. Well, you've known Joey for way longer than I have, so that should not surprise you.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
why don't we do this? Why don't we
should we sit?
tie?
Oh,
Yes.
thank
let's
you.
sit.
Wow, how
We have an
welcoming.
official
Hey.
sit.
Oh. They wore
there
the
we go. Look
jacket
at
to hide
that.
everything.
I know, it's funny.
Well,
He's always
I-
worried about my side boob in videos.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Oh, we're all fixed. We're good.
Yeah,
We're
oh,
set?
yeah, yeah.
We're perfect. How about your
Yes.
side boobs all good?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I made sure to wear the jacket today to cover that up. Yeah, doing the bourbon
Perfect.
study with Jill, I've learned a lot about my body in the process. So
I'm so sorry about that.
yes, yeah.
But I just feel like it's something that, and it's funny because my mother says, oh, Steve's really into bourbon now? And I was like, Ma, you don't even understand. Like, where does Steve get that from? He gets it from me. So,
Of course.
and we've sort of really gotten into the lore of like, what is bourbon? What is the process that goes into it? And then from coming to your events and seeing the Garrison Brothers, and you know, Steve always talks the ears off of the reps whenever they're around. He's always like, ooh, let's talk fancy grains and stuff. And so that I just find it fascinating. And you think about like, yeah, the price point, you talk about how Garrison and Dan's saying, like, oh, this is a really high-end bourbon when he's in the total wine and talking to you about the price. Don't let that scare you away.
Yeah.
But it's really about the time and the craft and the materials that are going into the finished product that are what makes it worthy of those price tags. And that's the same that can be said for your coffee, is that, you know, it has to sit 60 days. Somebody's paying rent.
And that's an expensive barrel.
Yeah.
To be sitting
So you've
around
got
for
an
40,
expensive
60
barrel,
days.
you got 60 days that's got to pay rent or get out. And you
And once it gets out, we have 40 bags of it.
right.
And then we start another barrel.
Yeah.
But before we jump in further, can we have maybe, I don't know, can we get production to grab us an open bottle of bourbon? Does the house have an open bottle of bourbon anywhere?
Anyone.
Anyone?
We have some open bottles
Well,
somewhere.
there's
For the
one
love of
thing
God, help
there.
us.
There's
Help
one
us.
thing that this house
I just
always
want it to have,
has.
like a Muppets like
Always
cut.
has. See, I'm going to do it just like a
was gonna-
bartender
Oh.
does. We're going
This is the.
all in.
You're not fancy unless you're in the Chef Bob outdoor kitchen.
That's
though.
right. I stick my fingers in crystal glasses. And because we're all about health,
A
I
double
think I did
pour.
this for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we're going to
So-
do a healthy pour.
So Bob,
Because we're going to have a healthy conversation about bourbon.
and I was going to say, so the reason that we're here, so we are the Bourbon Study, which means that it's a place to learn about bourbon, but also that we're studying the craft of bourbon, bourbon production, all of that. So sort of what interested you in doing bourbon coffee? I mean, I know you love to drink it, but like specifically, what sort of was like, hey, the switch on moment when you said, I'm making coffee? And I remember your old coffee was in like shiny blue bags and
Yeah.
purple labels,
Yep.
and we were selling it out of the store in Winter Park, and all kinds of stuff like that. So what sort of was the switch in your mind when you were like, hey, I think I want to get into bourbon coffee specifically?
Were you just holding the bottle and you just one day tipped it over?
it
and you were
over
like,
into it?
I've got an idea.
I can't say that didn't happen, but I can say that the moment that the idea kind of sprung into me was I was doing what I call my bourbon-inspired culinary journey, and it has nothing to do or had nothing to do with coffee at the time, but it had more to do with really good bourbon and food. And all of the elements that I created, the baby back ribs, the bison sliders, all of
sliders are
these
so good.
incredible foods, the candied bacon,
Yep.
bourbon brown sugar
Wait,
candied bacon.
remember the
which
s'mores?
Yes,
The
and the
s'mores
bourbon
with the
yes,
smoked
the adult
marshmallow
s'mores. Yes,
fluff?
with bourbon chocolate pudding.
We're just making
Guys,
them
this is
hungry.
rude.
I know, it's just rude. It's just rude. Have a cupcake. So I know the moment that this happened, and I'm glad you asked me that because no one's ever asked me this question. Like, where
I'm
did
here
it
for
ever
the
come
tough
from?
questions,
You are
Bob.
here for the tough questions. She's hitting me hard here. So I was in Atlanta. I was in Buckhead, Atlanta, and we were doing this. I'm looking right now at one of my chefs because he remembers this moment. And we were on this bourbon-inspired culinary journey. We were having a wonderful, incredible event, and we had bourbon everywhere, we had food everywhere, and we had my coffee. And I distinctly remember saying to myself, you know, if we had bourbon-flavored coffee, we'd have it all. And then I realized, why don't we have it all? One thing that anyone who knows me knows, I want it all. I want it all. I want everything that I want.
And of course, the minute that became an idea in your mind, it was like next week you were
that
like,
was
Dan,
it.
put
That
the
was
beans in
that was
there,
it.
make it
That was
happen.
it. So
Yeah.
how do we do that? So we did our due diligence. We did our research, and I found that the bourbon flavored coffees that were out there were terrible. They were
Well,
horrific,
mostly
and
they're like extracts of bourbon.
they
or
were
something,
either
like,
extracts of bourbon or they were, God help us, just coffee beans that they sprinkled or soaked bourbon in, and it was awful.
well,
So-
because I think at that point you're brewing the coffee, and you know how coffee grounds get kind of like bitter if you overbrew them a little bit.
Yes.
But if you're putting the bourbon in at that point, it's past the finishing stage.
It is,
It's not incorporated into part of the product. It's becoming an additional thing. So it'd almost be better if you just pour some Garrison in
Into
your
a
cup
glass,
after
yeah,
it's
or
done.
into absolutely. And so we just, you know, I Chef Bobbed it, and I said, okay, well, how do we create what I want to create on the end? How do we back that up? And it was literally a conversation with my roaster at the time, and I said, this is what I want to make. This is what I want to create. And he said, that's not hard. Let's get a bourbon barrel, and let's fill it with green coffee beans, and let's see what happens.
But how hard was the waiting on the first 40
Horrific.
days?
So the first waiting was not 40 days because, again, you know me, and I will not sit around for 40 days and wait for something to be right unless I have to. And Dan Garrison and I share that trait in that we hate waiting for things to just
You're
sit
already
and
thinking
be
about
right.
marshmallow
Friendship
fluff
right here,
being
yeah,
smoked.
yeah.
But
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we went through the true Chef Bob process of we tried it after 20 days. It was good. It wasn't great. We tried it after 25. We tried it after 30. We got to 40 days and we got to the point where we're like, oh, now we have something that's really good, really cool. And so we then went to, and of course we weren't using a Garrison Brothers barrel at that time. Fast forward to meeting with Dan Garrison. Fast forward to, why don't we use my barrels, Bob? My barrels have the best bourbon in them.
which we have now found out is just that Dan is a secret ploy to get them back to make other coffee.
I did not know any of that
Yeah.
until
He's
his
just
evil
revealed his
plan
evil
came
plan.
out.
So much for
and he's
telling
fully
Steve.
admitted that this is his evil plan.
I've
So,
been texting her husband, being like, "You got a bid on this." Now I'm like, "Oh no, what
well,
am I
do
doing?"
we have
Dan,
if
outbid
if
us.
someone can give me an updated number as to what we're $500. We're
Oh, we're out.
$500 for that barrel
I'm
right
like,
there.
Steve doesn't love me that much.
Yeah.
We might be able
What
to
does
get a.
Ryno-
Wait, does he love me that much?
I don't
Oh, you think I
know.
love her that much?
Yeah, no.
So then
My
so the
birthday's
process
coming up.
so the process is Dan will send me soaking wet. He will dump the barrels on Monday. I receive them here in Orlando on Wednesday.
Oh wow.
So no time for
Soaking
them to
wet.
dry
They're
out and
so
stuff.
wet.
Yeah.
And Dan and I have this conversation with Donis Todd, his master distiller. Donis picks the barrels that come to Chef Bob. And they're soaking wet. There's enough in the barrel to make sure that we can pour a little bit of bourbon out of that
Okay,
barrel.
yeah.
It goes to Gus, our roaster. That's his little nod from Dan Garrison.
The devil's cut.
Yeah, he gets his devil's cut. And then we immediately fill those barrels with green coffee beans. We seal them up, and then we let them rest and think about life. And we roll them, we rotate them, we talk to them, we have a nice conversation about life and positive things, and they soak up all that bourbon.
Now you're
I know,
mentioning
isn't it
the
exciting?
I know. I'm
specifics.
like,
It's
yeah,
like, wow.
yeah.
You're mentioning the specifics of that process, but how often are they turn? I know in like wine production with like sparkling wine and stuff, they have to like turn them like 3 times a day. What is the process for what happens to that barrel on a regular schedule from when you put the beans in to when you take the beans out?
Everyone's different. Everyone's an individual barrel. Every schedule's different. Every day's different. Everybody's life is different. We rotate them on a regular basis. There's not a specific schedule. Almost nothing in our businesses is
You just
on a
wait
hard
for
and
them to
true.
whisper to you, and they
You
go,
know when God and the universe say,
I'd like to
let's roll
turn
the
to the
barrels.
left.
Yeah, it's time to roll the barrel.
Roll me
and,
over, please.
and honestly, I think it's more a matter of Gus has the need to smell the bourbon beans because that's his opportunity to open them up and get a good smell of those.
That's what I do every
me,
time I come
yeah.
over your house. I'm like, "Can I open all these bottles and smell them?" And Steve gives me that
And
weird
can't
look,
you
and I'm
tell?
like,
So let me ask you: can't you tell the difference right out of the gate when you smell a bourbon, when you look at a bourbon's color? Can't you? Don't you get an idea? That's the same way with our beans. So every barrel's different.
Yeah.
Humidity's different. Temperature's different. Length of bourbon's in there.
I was
We have
like,
on the tops.
I'm in the business of cake. You're speaking up the right tree over
Exactly.
here. I'm like,
And
is
every
the
barrel had
humidity
it-
like this? Is the weather?
Yeah, it all
down?
has an impact
Yeah.
on in this case, on that bean. And so then we take it from that process, and then we get into a further technical process of you saw on the video. We dump them in the top of the roaster, and then we literally watch them spin around like children, and then we pull out that little shooter that we can smell them, and
You don't want to
And-
know how many times I've watched that video. So when I was a child, I had like 2 dreams as a child. I was like, one, I want to
Bourbon?
be in a, well,
Oh,
no.
okay.
Yes, three dreams as a child.
3 dreams. Now we're at 3.
When I was a child, I was like, I want to be in a Christmas parade at Disney World. Done. Okay, 2007, we accomplished that. Number 2 dream was I want to work in a factory.
You gotta love a girl with dreams.
What?
I just like how it's made
Were
and
your
all those
parents
shows.
born in the 1920s, and they were like, "We're gonna raise this kid to be
I love like
factory work.
watching.
Factory
Yeah,
work.
like
Laverne and
there.
Shirley." Is
I
that where you
went.
were?
I flew all the way to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to learn how cabinets are made. Like I went to the factory, and they showed me like when they're distressing them, they beat them with chains.
I am learning a lot
This
about
is
my
so
friend here
awesome,
right
isn't it?
now in this
So
moment.
I wanted to work in a factory. So that part fascinates me with the like turning and the looking at them, the videos that your coffee roaster has about like we watch them, and I could watch beans all day. So I don't want to tell you how many times I've seen that video, but it's uncountable.
Unhealthy.
That is
the word
awesome.
we're looking for.
That is awesome. Well, tell me, give me the bourbon study process as though you've never had this Garrison Brothers.
Well, actually, it wasn't until today, till I stepped into your house, that I had this version for the first time.
And we haven't talked about it.
No,
No,
we haven't.
yeah,
We haven't talked
This
about
is
it.
live.
So this
Yeah.
is
Live,
live. This is
the
happening
bourbon
right now
study
in
happening
our
right
studio.
now.
Yeah.
So tell me, go through that process quick.
Okay, so of course we want to start with the breathing it in. What do we think?
Do we want to just like really quick be like, this is what we do
Yeah.
on the bourbon study? Because I know you guys spoke about it really quickly, but you Chef Bob, you were saying
Ryan's the paperwork guy. I just sit here and look cute. It's
we got
fine.
yeah. Well, thank God for you. The idea was that Jill has always been, when Jill gets into something, like she said, whether it's factory work.
You've seen my house.
I have.
I've got a
fully
pony
commit.
room.
She devotes.
You
Yeah,
fully
yeah.
commit.
I've got an Avengers Lounge. We're
And-
good.
And she was like, I had been also on this journey. We've all been on this weird journey for the last year where I was like, oh, you know what I want to do when I can host people again is I want to learn how to just be able to, like, oh, you come over, I'm going to make you this, like, classic cocktail. And then Jill and I got to talking one day about bourbon, and she was saying that her and her husband had really gotten into bourbon, and they've been on this journey for a little while, and she was very knowledgeable of it. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be fun? Like, when I think of bourbon, I think about it as being, like, when people are into bourbon, they are into it. Like, it feels sometimes intimidating and, like, not accessible. So I said, let's do this video where let's do
We're
a
like
series.
an idiot's guide.
Exactly. Where
bourbon.
we demystify bourbon and make it accessible to more people.
It's not
so
just
it feels-
mustaches and suspenders, no matter how much Steve wants it to be.
Yeah. He keeps cutting in the screen. And I'm like, well, I'm doing the editing, so so we started this journey, and it's funny what you just said about the humidity and the thing. And I'm thinking back already. What I've learned is that we did an episode recently that we haven't aired yet that was about 3 types under this one label, specific brand, but it was all came out of the Rick House.
Yeah, the same brick house.
But different times of year. So
Gotcha.
we tried, blind taste tested it to see like, oh, does it make a difference? And we found that we did actually have a preference in when it comes in season. So that's the beauty of this like process that you're doing with the coffee and that sort of stuff, is that you can love this thing so much, but it's so unique. It's like an art form because it's never the same twice, and there's something really beautiful about that. I don't
That's
know.
awesome
so,
philosophy.
yeah.
I totally agree, and I know that Jilly's Steve, it both inspires and infuriates me at the same time because,
Well, welcome
which
to
is
Talk.
Steve.
Steve, if
because-
you're watching,
He
Yeah.
is-
Oh,
he is
you're
watching.
watching.
He's been
We know you
texting me.
are.
Yeah.
That you save my coffee. So you want my coffee, you love my coffee, and then you put it away,
Yeah.
and then you don't drink
That's
it.
how he is
until
about
it's
gifts.
a very
Yeah.
special
no,
thing.
No.
it's the
yeah.
same way with gifts, except for the smoker.
He
The
gets-
smoker he used
Yeah,
the first
right away.
day.
He
Yeah,
gets
that was
nervous
it.
when I come over for the bourbon and it's not an open bottle. And he'd be like, well, and Jill's like, boom, opens it before he can back down. Because she's like, if I don't rip the Band-Aid off now, it's
It's
never
done.
coming off.
It's never coming
Yeah.
off. But yeah,
Well-
I mean, Garrison, so of course on camera last week we tried the honeydew.
Yes.
Because it's just so
So
cool.
good.
And
So
so
good.
good. And Ryan almost stole the bottle,
Yeah,
leaving my
she
house.
let me work at the house actually this week, and they go, and I have a very small, and I record podcasts and stuff, so I have
Very
a quiet
small.
space. I went over and they're like, help yourself, and I'm like, well, you said help yourself. So the first thing I went to was the Garrison Honeydew, because that is so good, so good.
So tell me your thoughts on this, Garrison.
I mean, you know that I love Garrison. I've been drinking Garrison at your house for the last 5 years or so. But I mean, the thing about Garrison is that it's so nuanced. It's not like, you drink an Evan Williams, you drink Buffalo Trace, you drink all those, and they've got those very classic caramel notes and the vanilla straight off the top, and it's very straightforward. Garrison sort of develops as you drink it. So you drink a little sip and you're like, oh, I've got the like spicy thing happening. I've got that classic
gives you that-
caramel
that
happening.
hug.
And it gives you that nice hug. And I think that, so absolutely, Garrison, especially when you're going to be putting it into cupcakes, or you're going to be putting it into coffee or anything else, it brings a lot more to the table than just a straight up bourbon flavor.
But it's very drinkable just by itself on the
Yeah.
pour, which, like we've had some bourbons that I felt like that, and then we've had some bourbons where I'm like, oh, this is definitely the mixed drink bourbon. Like,
Yeah, gotcha.
this is
This
the
one-
company
Gotcha.
is over, and I'm going to pretend.
Like, this is what we're going to give the guests.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, bourbon. That's what she gives me when I come over. But no,
No.
we've had fancy bourbons.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining me in the kitchens. Thank you so much for joining us here and for sharing this with me. I'm so excited I could share my coffee with you and my bourbon with you and our story with you. And I am super excited
And now
for
let's go have some cupcakes with you because it's your birthday.
It is my birthday. We have one more thing that we're gonna do.
Okay.
We'll sit
I
here
know,
quietly
and
and drink the bourbon.
yes. I'm gonna see if Alex Young is still available. Alex is
Alex?
still available, and so here, come on out, Alex. I'm gonna let you guys go ahead, stay here,
All right.
enjoy your bourbon, and be color commentary here behind us.
Like
There you go.
Waldorf and
Yeah,
Shatner.
we're
and-
Yeah.
Wait, which one am I? I'm the grumpier one.
Your commentary, you're definitely color.
If you couldn't tell by the jacket already.
Yeah.
I knew this would
Exactly.
be- yeah.
It is
So Alex, tell me what kind of comments we've had. Tell me what kind of questions we have. I know I've been seeing some bits about questions coming up. Tell us where we are with our barrel auction. Tell us where we are with questions. Tell us where we are now.
Well, I can tell you where we're at right now is we're looking at that Dan Garrison.
Oh no.
We know. Well,
Oh,
we,
no.
It's my birthday, Dan.
we knew what he was getting into. We knew that this was going to be a problem for us. He is not only eclipsed that 250, but he is that $500
Oh my
bid at
gosh.
this point. So he really wants that barrel
Steve,
back. He
501.
really needs that. So yeah, Steve, if you're out there,
501.
501. Anybody else out there,
Price is Right
this
rules.
is your chance to have that barrel. While we're having everybody finalize maybe the thoughts of auctioning, I think a question that came up a bit is that we're a small business here at Chef Bob's Coffee, and we
We
have
are.
the opportunity to work with folks like Jill and Jillycakes. Tell us a little bit about our process in focusing on small family business.
We, as you know, we pride ourselves on focusing on small families, on small businesses, on entrepreneurs, and especially on family businesses. We work to create that one bag of coffee, that Bourbon Barrel Aged coffee, from the small business farmer across the world. We use coffee farmers that are no larger than 2 acres. That's it.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Yeah.
So 2 acres is just a little bigger than our property
It's like
right
a
here.
backyard in
I was going to say, well, we're from
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. That's
It's
where
a
we grew
backyard.
up. Yeah.
So a 2 acre small family owned business. That farmer produces our coffee bean that we then use a small family owned importer, and that importer brings that coffee to us here in Orlando. We then give it to a small family business in Gus, our roaster, and he roasts that process. We get our barrels from obviously a small family business out in High Texas from Garrison Brothers, and we are, of course, a small family business. So we are all small family business owners, and the companies that we work and we help to create our products with are all small family businesses, and we're very proud of that fact.
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah. One last question that did come in. It didn't come in the chat, but it actually came via text to
Okay.
me. Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, we have multiple mediums working here this evening, but we talk about just the fact that this is really your craft. This is your passion. Like, what if anything we've not covered tonight do you need the audience to know about Chef Bob and about Chef Bob's coffee?
Really, it's intimate and it's personal to me. Every single bag of coffee that we create, just like every cake that you create, it's intimate and it's personal to me. I get texts and I get calls and I get images from folks that will just send me a picture of a cup of coffee and say, thank you for creating this. It reminds me of this. And that's an incredibly powerful thing to get. I know you get those.
I've done it to you too, though.
You
With
have
the banana bread. I did that.
the banana bread coffee, exactly.
I did that with the pecan pie, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah. And so, honestly, Alex, for me, I consider it an honor and a blessing to be able to create that product that people have that intimate a relationship with.
Yeah.
I really do. And it's a matter of pride.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Absolutely. Well, I know that we're at the top of the hour, so is there anything else that we need our audience to know tonight about the Devil's Cut or about anything about Chef Bob's coffee maybe in the future?
What the barrel is up to right this minute?
Yes. So I am sitting here with my phone just waiting for that next
We
bid to come
know
in.
Garrison's going to get
We
it.
know
Dan.
he's going to find a way
All
to
right.
do that.
All right. So we're gonna call.
I'll
The,
take the
is my
next
producer gonna
one.
say yes? We're gonna call the winner. We're gonna call the winner at Dan Garrison. Oh my God, we're saying yes. We are. God.
Thanks
Congratulations,
a lot, Dan.
Dan Garrison, on winning the auction for the Devil's Cut. This pains me.
Is there
me.
a thing where like he can't let any of his barrels get out into the wild or something?
Yeah, I guess there is a thing where they have to
Yeah.
come back. They
There's
have to
children.
come back.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
children.
Well, I love that I love that he's as passionate about
If it's
his
gonna
barrels.
go to anybody, at least
It,
it's gonna
I
go
know
to
it's
Right.
gonna
It
go.
stays in the
It's
family,
gonna go
right?
to a home there where it's gonna be well loved.
Right.
That's true.
And it sounds
It
like
is.
he's got some pretty creative ideas going with this already.
He does, and I have a feeling. Dan, that you're gonna do exactly what you said you're gonna do. You're gonna fill this barrel back up with some 5-year-old bourbon, and you're gonna let it barrel age for another year, and it's gonna pick up all those coffee notes and that previous.
Are
Can
we going to be
you?
bidding on this barrel again in a year? Is that what you're saying?
I'm
Right.
thinking maybe so.
It's the infinite barrel. It just keeps coming back.
Well,
to us
that would
and
be
bidding
that would
every-
be an incredible
that would be
thing. That would be
hilarious.
incredible.
Well,
thing.
if we're gonna let him just take this, we need to make sure that he's gonna share.
Yeah,
some of
I
that
just
creation
thinking the
we're
same
doing.
thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, see,
Like
Alex,
Dan
this
is
it's
a-
only fair.
That's what he
right?
does.
Dan is a sharing and caring person, and I know that he will take that under advisement and strongly consider it.
I'll give him a call.
Well, I want to thank you guys for joining me. Thank you
for
so
having
much.
Thank you so
us
much.
on.
Yeah.
You're very
I mean,
welcome.
we're-
Thank you, Alex.
And
Thank
happy
you.
birthday,
Always a
Alex.
pleasure.
Oh, and
Yeah,
thank you, thank you,
absolutely.
thank
We're
you.
gonna eat these cupcakes now.
We're gonna go eat these
been
cupcakes,
staring at
have
them
some
for 20
coffee,
minutes.
sip some bourbon, and we're going to, as I'm famous for saying, we're gonna bob out. So,
Bob out.
Bob out. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you for enjoying the Devil's Cut, and we will look forward to seeing you again.
Cheers.
Cheers.